like the best video ever. This is great. We got 25 minutes. We gotta go.
Hey everyone, happy Wednesday.
Another hump day, guys.
Welcome everybody to Say That channel. My name is Janelle Villiers. That over there is Winston Broderick. We're your two hosts where we are unapologetic about the ugly come up of entrepreneurship and small business owners.
Say that.
So you've all heard that story about how people start with nothing and then they have massive success. But what happens in the middle? What happens during the ugly come up? What's the mindset they need to have? What are the pitfalls they need to circumvent? We are here for all of that. And so we love to do this because we learn from each other, we grow, but we all know how your attention span is. So we only have 25 minutes to do it. But then when we run out of the 25 minutes, what do? Oh no, we've run out of time. Well, you can catch us over on Overtime. There, all of our Patreon members, Say That Nation, you can find us there. You'll find all of the recordings with our guests. Really a ton of nuggets there. So make sure you jump on that. And don't forget to subscribe, because when you do that, the algorithm that what we're sharing is valuable and they'll share it to more people. So please subscribe, like, ring that notification bell so you don't miss another episode, and share this if you thought this was valuable to any of your friends, family, or other entrepreneurs in your life.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I really wanted to talk about with everyone is, so you finally made the decision to write the book that you've been thinking about in your head. But how do you get that jumbled mess out of your head and onto paper so that way you can finally publish the book? And then how do you market it? How do you actually make money from it? Well, I'm inviting you to my next free masterclass on Monday, October 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, where I'm going over how to earn a lucrative income by becoming a best-selling author from scratch. See you there. That's right, everyone. That's Monday, October 21st. I'm really excited to have anybody who's been thinking about writing a book. If somebody's been telling you you need to write a book, but you're like, how am I going to figure this out? This is a masterclass for you. Having a lot of ideas doesn't count you out. You're in the right place, and I'll help you get there. And anyone who registers from today's show, I will send you a free copy of my book, and I will sign it and send it to you. So back to our regular scheduled programming.
All right, so what's the topic for today? We got?
Could your fear of networking be the downfall of your business?
Great
This is a great question. And so it is not just going to be myself and Winston who answer today's question. We have an amazing guest on today. He is a husband, a father, and a entrepreneur's entrepreneur. He has so much experience. I cannot wait for you guys to hear from Rion Westfall.
Our next guest.
There he is.
Ryan, welcome in.
How we doing, Winston, Janelle?
Oh, we're super excited to have you on. And
great to be with you.
For those who are not familiar with your story, please let us know a little bit about how you became an entrepreneur, a little bit about your journey up until today.
Oh wow, it's been a long journey. I mean, a couple of decades in the making. So how do you reduce a couple of decades to 2 minutes, right? I started. I mean, probably the biggest influence was my family. So my father actually never finished high school, so he didn't have much of a choice other than to start his own business. And but of course, he promoted us to, hey, go to school, become somebody, those types of things. So I went off and was the first one to actually do college. And so went and did my mechanical engineering, did some business, came out of there, did some aerospace, worked at Raytheon Missile Systems. From there, went into some EPCM, engineering, procurement, construction management with some mining firms. Started working internationally because I speak 2 languages, both English and Spanish. And ended up securing a contract, or actually hired on as a VP of an international firm. I was still in my 20s, but they took a gamble on me, and so we started there. And as I looked at it, I said, hey, I can do this better if I'm a contractor. And so from that point, I said, hey, gentlemen, thank you very much. I love being a VP, still in my 20s, but I would rather prefer to be a contractor to you, to have my own business. And so that's where it started here, and that's been almost 15 years ago. So here we are. I started that, and then I worked internationally with them and helped them grow. Ended up working in about 15 different countries. So a lot of different interesting projects, packages with different cultures, different ways of life, things of that nature. So it was really, really fun to get to know them. I've started several businesses since then, various joint ventures. Some of them I've even gone out and brought in private equity. So we brought in some equity firms and other mining ventures, oil and gas ventures, heavy equipment, things of that nature. So it's definitely been a wild ride with a lot of that. And so right now my focus is really helping other entrepreneurs and helping them on the business development side of things, which is all encompassing. I use that term very loosely. Business development means a lot of things. It's not just sales. It's not just marketing. There's a whole compass. There's a lot of different strategies and things to do, especially depending on what niche you're in and what vein you're trying to ride.
Very cool.
So people can now understand why. He's been doing this for quite some time. He's met a ton of people. So what is your take on today's question? Could your fear of networking be the downfall of your business?
One of the things that I've experienced in my life is fear, right? I mean, every business venture, even still to the day, I was talking with my wife and with another friend of mine who's also a coach, is you still have it. No matter what, there's always a fear of something moving into the future. And when you're an entrepreneur, those are always just elevated. So you just have more fears as an entrepreneur. However, that fear I've always used as a motivation, because for me, I always ask myself, what would happen if I don't do this? As opposed to, if I'm going to do this or if I'm going to do that, let's put the shoe on the other foot, right? What happens if I don't? I am going to continue to stay exactly where I am. And in this case, the question that we've got posed here, fear of networking. I rarely know any venture that has ever just fallen in my lap. Like I just, hey, here's a great venture. You're going to earn millions of dollars, or even, hundreds of thousands, whatever the case is. I've never had something just fall out of the sky for me, or frankly, anyone else I know personally. I mean, you may have heard of a story, but I've never personally experienced that. Everything that I've ever had when it comes to business has always been because of knowing someone. And you can learn new insight, government regulation, or something in the cells is changing on new technology or something like that. You can always have that, but in the end, your team, your people, how fast it comes about, all of it is going to rely on the actual networking that you do.
So this is okay. So you've seen a lot. You've been around a lot of people. What has personally affected you? Was there can you look back at a specific event where you were networking or happened to just meet someone, and because of that specific connection, it brought you to the next phase in one of your businesses?
Absolutely. One that comes to mind is I did a training, and mind you, this is years after I've already been doing business development internationally. And I came across a gentleman, and he was in Phoenix, and his whole thing was CRO. And at that point, it was a new term, Chief Revenue Officer. And you're like, well, what's that? What does that mean? And he's like, well, he says, I don't know if I have a trademark, but I almost have a trademark for the term. And he brought it to light. He's an older gentleman, and through that networking, so he developed a whole little course and everything. And so I got on and I said, hey, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. So Again, it was just I think it was just a LinkedIn connection. He made a comment to somebody else, and my whole aspect was, hey, that sounds interesting. I want to learn more. And that's really what I did in his case. And so that led to an entire opportunity for me to get quote unquote certified under his program, to become more knowledgeable on the basis of revenue, so that I can take that learning and be able to help basically other businesses employ and have those same concepts in their businesses, and to be able to help them grow. So from that aspect, to answer your question, is really, yeah, I mean, you can meet anybody anywhere at any time. So to always be mentally prepared for that, to be presentable, to be asking questions. That is one of the things that I found to be the most helpful when you're trying to network, is just ask questions. Just be genuine and ask questions about them, their life, what they do, and almost automatically the conversation will go from there.
So I love that too, because I think that's, going back to the fear, right? I think that's a lot of what people fear is in networking, is they just don't know what to say. How do you make a connection with somebody? And so I love that you even gave some tips, like what are some of the things that you can do? Well, you can ask questions, even saying something like, I'm not really sure I understand that. Would you be able to explain it again or a little bit differently? I'm really interested, I think, is an honest and easy way to start to have a conversation with somebody, especially if you want to get to know them better.
And tell them that. I mean, usually we find ourselves in situations, if we're personally networking, we're often limited to amount of time, right? Whether you're at an event, a social event, or something of that nature, you're meeting a bunch of people, you're passing to, you don't have a lot of time to get to know someone. But you can ask very, very simple questions. Hey, how'd you get started in whatever the industry is? What brought you here today? Very, very simple questions. And then from there, it's a lot easier to say, hey, can we pick up this conversation later? I'm really interested in, and then you share whatever it was that you were interested in based on their response. But absolutely, when you're face to face like that, that's a perfect opportunity to ask a little bit, and then from there turn the coin to get a lengthier time with them. Very much similar, I think, Janelle, you and I had we had the same way, right? We were on a Zoom. I don't know, BNI. I forget the name of the.
It's PGC, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We were on the call, and I was on a screen, and you were on a screen. We were all Brady bunched up, and but from there, we gave a small intro as to what we did. We said, hey, that sounds interesting. Let's talk afterwards. And sure enough, we talked afterwards, and we've had several Zoom calls since. And so really, it's the thing that I found to be most helpful is just to be curious about other people and what they do. Because in the end, even if that person, say, isn't good for you and what you're trying to accomplish in the future, they may be a good reference for somebody else that you run into. And so learning everything you can about anybody at any point in time is great to be able to share and grow your network, because you're going to run into other people that may need his service. If I know you, Janelle, and you do book writing, I'm going to run into Bobby later this week, and Bobby's going to express how he's writing a book and he needs help with it. Then in my mind, I'm just going to have that little light bulb, and I'm going to say, hey, you need to talk to Janelle. And it's really going to be that simple, but that reference is going to be critical, not only for you, but for Bobby, as well as my relationship with both of you.
Right.
What would you say, though, to a person they're not thinking, or maybe they're just thinking the next sale? So I do want to get better at this networking skill, but it's to just bring in customers just for my business. What would you say to someone like that? What would be your advice there?
If your purpose is to network for only getting a sale, my experience is you're going to be short-lived. So you're going to struggle, and you're going to get frustrated with the sales process, largely because if you look at your own life and you say, what do I do when somebody hits me with a sales pitch? When somebody throws an email at me or a text at me that says, hey, I want to talk to you about, and then they list it and, when can we chat? Most of the time, you probably just hit delete. You probably just, you ignore it. And if it happens, enough and it's automated, you click no more or opt out or whatever the case is. You stop the communication because you're tired of the way, not the message, you're tired of the way that they're trying to reach you. And so it's not that the message isn't value. It's not that you wouldn't buy the product that they're selling. It's just you don't want to be approached that way. So a simple, unique question. For example, I'm in the process of writing some material, some content, book related, course related, and that kind of stuff. And in so doing, as I've reached out to people, for example, on LinkedIn, I can just reach out to them, and instead of saying, would you like to be interested, or would you have interest in purchasing my book or my content or my course or whatever that is, if I reach out and say, would you be interested in being interviewed for my book? That's a completely different context. And so right there, most of the time you're going to get a response like, well, I've never been asked to be interviewed for a book. So tell me more. And at that point, I've already have a situation where I can visit with them, where we can discuss more. And the moment you can have a little bit of personal time, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 20 minutes, whether it's 30 minutes, a little bit of time on Zoom goes a very, very, very long way into building trust. And then once you build that trust factor, from then on, business is actually just a lot easier to do. That's what I found.
So the trust factor, it is a big deal, right? And for those that are new, creating that level of trust, I think, is probably the hardest part, especially because it's one of those things. It's like, you eat what you kill, and so people are just looking for the quick sale, right? Like, can I get this? But I think the truth of the matter is that nobody likes the fact that if you're in that place where you only eat what you kill, it's hard to recognize that a large part of this business is going to be made based on planting seeds and creating relationships, which both of those things take time. It's not an immediate thing. I know Jim Rohn compares it to gardening, right? Like planting seeds and cultivating, right? And watching things bloom, and then you have the harvest and like all of that. And I think that's one of the things that's hardest for someone who's new, and maybe even hard for someone who's been in it for a while and they're trying to figure out, like, why isn't this working? Like, how has what you've learned in the whole, like, figuring out how to network and how to connect with people, I'd love to hear how that relates somewhat to what you're currently doing now.
So, that's a great question. When you take a step back and look from a kind of a macroeconomic scale of what's happening, I'm just going to turn to commerce, right? We are so used to buying things. Most of us have an Amazon account. Most of us go through and we buy on it, and it shows up the next day or 2 days later, or even the same day, depending on where you are. We are so used to commerce of life. But one thing I found with considering our audience here is mostly entrepreneurs, right? You've got your own business. You're trying to promote your product. You're trying to, like Winston said, you're trying to get the next sale. You don't want to come off of salesy, but your bills require that you get the sale and you get it in a timely manner. So how do you go about building a sustainable product into the future? So something that is sustainable and scalable at the same time. And this is one of the things that I'm actually working on with a number of vendors right now that have products. And when I say products, it could be physical products, it could be digital products, even services is what we'll be getting into. But any product of a sort, when you step back and you look at the business, you've already had some success. It might be a hard success. It may have been a hard 6 months or the last 3 years, 4 years. It could be very, very hard for you. You've been going through the grind, but nonetheless, you've had clients along the way. You had customers come in and make a purchase, and maybe you made some good money, maybe you broke even. Regardless, it doesn't matter. You have a customer base. And I kind of always use this adage, mine your list, M-I-N-E, mine your list, and mind, M-I-N-D, your list. So one of your greatest assets as a company is your list. It's your bank of people who have paid you. And some of them you've sold to them once, you've sold to them twice, they've been repeat customers, but one of your most greatest assets is your list of people, your list of previous customers. So in the business world, to go back and utilize that list, and I'm not saying just go back to them with another offer so that they buy again. The question is, how do you utilize that list to grow that list? And that is a hard thing to do, but in the business world we call it the affiliate program. Most companies struggle doing affiliate programs. One, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to set it up. There is complicated aspects to the technology and how we do this and those types of things. But if you remember, before technology, there was referral programs all the time. Power companies and utility companies, or the AT&T, your cable companies. Hey, if you refer, I don't know if you guys remember seeing that, but you get them in the mail all the time. In fact, still kind of do. Refer your neighbor, and if your neighbor buys, then we'll knock off $10 off your next month. They give referral bonuses to try and generate, but that's what they're doing, is they're trying to use their list to grow their list. So in one of the best ways, when we look at sustainable and scalable growth. So right now, Winston, you brought it up. Business people, salespeople get tired of just knocking on doors, going to the next sale. That's why there's an entire industry dedicated to it, to keeping people upbeat and going out and knocking more doors. But what happens if that stops working? What happens if that's not working efficiently? Because it always depends on the person. What happens when your other methods, for example, leads? A lot of people think, hey, I've got to broadcast out and I've got to spend a bunch of money on Facebook and on Google ads and things of this nature just to bring in leads. Well, you only have so much funds. And the truth is, if you're on this call, more than likely you're a small business owner, quote unquote. You have 100 or less employees, and you're not going to compete with the budget of the big boys. You won't be able to out ad spend them. So how do you double your business this year? Well, you've got 5,000 previous customers. Well, how do I get to 10,000? Well, let's go to those 5,000 and let's turn them into affiliates. Provide an offer that takes them, they go and share with someone they had because they had a good experience with you, and each one of them shares with one other person throughout an entire year process. You've just doubled the size of your customer base. So there's a process to this, and that would be probably what I would say as far as what I'm doing now and helping businesses is say, hey, how do we go about doing that? Because it's not easy. It's not just intuitive. You don't write a few emails. There's a process to this, and that's part of what my books and courses actually talk about, is the value of the process that is going to be coming. So I will be having many challenges and things like that that'll be coming out here in the next coming weeks, months, maybe even weeks, depending on how fast I get that out. But we talk exactly about that. We talk about how we take your business, how we can do affiliate programs, and we use your list to grow your list. You keep doing the other things, keep knocking the doors, keep, whatever it is that's been working for you. You don't stop that, but this is often a very lost resource that we're not tapping into. And, I can cite a bunch of different studies and things of that nature that talk about how the wave of the future is the creator economy, the influencer, those people that are going to be driving business sales. Because I don't know about you, but the last time I saw an ad and actually clicked on it and bought something, I mean, when was the last time you bought something on oh no. There we go.
No, but this is getting really good, because this is where a lot of small business owners are trying to look to. How can I get organic influencers, or just people, like, we want to know more about this. So this is actually really good.
There's a lot to know.
All right, so we're gonna
start somewhere.
Yes, and we're gonna get more into that in overtime. So if you were joining us and you have more questions and you're like, "Ooh, this is really good," Brian is about to go in on something that I am very curious about, please join us in overtime. That's for all of our Patreon members. The Patreon link is in the description below, so you can go ahead and do that. But before we take off, we want to let you know that you can email Ryan. That is his email address. Please, he's a real person. He will respond to you. You can find him on LinkedIn as well. There's his YouTube channel where he also goes over many of these topics. So you can watch him slow some of these topics down and get a listen in on that. And Absolutely. So that's his website. Guys, we really, really thank you so much, Ryan. Like, I am excited to go into overtime. You don't even know.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So meet us over in overtime. Again, if you haven't done so already, hit the notification bell, hit that like button so that you always know when we have new content coming out. But until next time, as always, remember, you deserve the good life. Say that. We'll see you guys in overtime.